Last week, I interviewed Robert Horning, who's the executive director of the Canadian Renewable Association, about wind and solar in Canada last year. And there was 1 gigawatt of new capacity brought online. But more importantly, this year, there'll be 3 gigawatts of new wind and solar generating capacity and another 3 gigawatts next year, most of it in Alberta. Which may come as a surprise to many Canadians. So I'm going to talk to Nagwan Al-Guneid, who's the director at the Business Renewables Centre Canada, about that and why Alberta. So welcome to the interview, Nagwan.
Thank you for having me, Markham.
I want to ask you about a line from that I found on your website attributed to you. I've learned that there's a revolution happening in corporate renewable purchasing and no one's talking about it. So why is there a revolution in corporations buying renewable power in Alberta, and why aren't we talking about it?
So, yes, I mean, 2021 was a banner year for growth in Canada's renewable sector. The market for corporate renewable energy deals in Alberta is supporting $3.7 billion of construction by 2023, and nearly 4,500 jobs will come with that. And corporate renewable energy deals are behind the biggest year for renewable energy construction in Alberta's history. So it is exciting. And another exciting thing in 2021 that actually happened is the increased diversity of companies as well. So companies like IBM, Amazon, Starbucks are getting involved. These organizations have also joined the Business Renewables Centre Canada because they are interested in buying renewable energy. And they come from all kinds of sectors: oil and gas, food and beverage, tech, and we even got our first Bitcoin company last year. And then when you think about the capacity, these deals are contracting an impressive amount of energy, enough to power over 600,000 homes, which is the number of homes in Calgary, Red Deer, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat combined. So these renewable energy deals, what we call them as power purchasing agreements or PPAs, are happening because companies are looking for ways to reduce their carbon footprint and to source their electricity from renewable sources. So yes, Markham, there is a revolution happening and no one is talking about it. So thanks for asking.
Well, this is very exciting, and you can see why corporations are leading the parade here. I mean, they're under a considerable amount of pressure from shareholders and activists, I suppose, to decarbonize their operations. One of the first easiest ways to do that is to electrify things and to make sure the electricity you do buy, if you're a bank or you're a manufacturing company, is from wind and solar. So we understand the motivation of the buyers, but why Alberta?
You know, Alberta has what we call a deregulated electricity market. And this simply means that companies can purchase renewable energy directly from developers without passing through utility companies, the ENMAXs, the ATCOs, and so forth. So you can be a company in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, and you can still sign a PPA here in Alberta. We call this a virtual PPA. And since Alberta is the only province in Canada with this regulatory environment, we've been getting the lion's share of these investments. That's why it's growing so much here. Alberta is the perfect place for renewable energy projects. So, we get 320 days of sunshine, and anyone living in Lethbridge can attest to the wind power in southern Alberta. So it is a good place to be in, and Saskatchewan and Nova Scotia are currently looking to open the doors for these investments through some programs they're offering. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting how Alberta deregulated its industry beginning in the late 1990s. I mean, we were living in Calgary at the time, and it wasn't all that popular, and there have been many complaints over the years. And yet the irony here is that the system, I don't think anybody in the late 1990s anticipated that the changes that were coming would in fact revolutionize the electricity industry by facilitating the shift to wind and solar and to batteries.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. It's that's why it's a revolution as well. Like it's getting all the right components to make it happen.
So what are we looking at in terms of the buyers, Nagwan? Are we seeing a shift in the type of buyer? I mean, we've seen banks. I remember the Royal Bank had a big PPA there. We've seen some other corporations, like I think Amazon is in, and who else is looking at entering into these corporate PPAs over the next couple of years?
So for sure, banks are doing that. Scotiabank just announced a deal 10 days ago. So there's that. We see food and beverage. Bimbo Canada was a big one as well. The Amazons, the tech companies, the ones with the heavy loads. And this is really to achieve their ESG commitments and to reduce their carbon footprint. You see oil and gas companies, they have massive PPAs as well. It's really a mix, but what's new right now is that diversification that's happening. It's not just the companies with heavy loads, it's even smaller companies with smaller loads. And some of them are actually aggregating or coming, like a bunch of them coming together to sign a PPA. Municipalities as well and towns are looking into that. So that's what's unique about it right now. We're seeing beyond oil and gas and mining and bigger companies.
I'm particularly interested in oil and gas because, oil and gas industry in Canada contributes 26% of greenhouse gas emissions. And it's the reason why Alberta, at a quarter of Canada's national emissions, it's a problem and it's difficult to abate oil and gas. But electrification is one of the ways to do that. Is there a growing recognition within that sector that corporate PPAs are a way of lowering their carbon footprint?
I think it's like any other environmental program or a mechanism to reduce your carbon footprint. You see companies embracing it quickly and some are not. Synovus has a deal, for example. It was announced a couple of years ago. Shell is a buyer and also an intermediary, which is a broker type of company as well. So, I mean, you have the leading organizations doing that, and you have the ones that are still evaluating their options. It is a big agreement. It's a complex transaction. It takes time to build your team, the internal team, and it requires a number of experts internally. So it takes time, and I think that's why we exist. We educate, we help facilitate that type of conversation and providing them with templates and ways to help accelerate it. It could take years if you're not, if you don't have the right resources.
What are maybe the top one or two challenges looking out beyond 2023 in Nagwan to expanding corporate PPAs in Alberta?
I think it's the will. I mean, you as an organization, you need to really commit yourself and put that resource and bring that internal team to just go and build that capacity within the organization to learn. It is fairly like once you're in it, once you've achieved the 4 initial steps, it's fairly a straightforward type of transaction after that. I think it's the will. I think we need to start there, and it's the market is picking up. There was an exponential growth last year. There's demand for it. I think we just need to go and do it.
Now, you mentioned Saskatchewan perhaps making changes to open itself up so that it can do more of these corporate PPAs. What about in other provinces like British Columbia, which is heavily hydro, Ontario, which is heavily nuclear, but we're looking at maybe, according to the modelers that I've interviewed, Canada's going to need 2 or 3 times as much electricity as it currently generates by the time we get to 2050. And you can't build enough hydro and probably can't build enough nuclear to do that. So wind and solar is going to be, an important part of that. What about those kind of provinces? What are they doing to facilitate corporate PPAs in wind and solar?
So not every jurisdiction can actually do a PPA. Like we're the only ones with a deregulated market. So Saskatchewan is looking at a subscription program where companies can actually sign up. Nova Scotia is looking at green tariffs. So these are the two provinces that are looking into things. Ontario did announce the Clean Energy Certificates voluntary program, and this was 2 weeks ago. Provinces are looking into allowing and enabling the systems to help buyers reduce their emissions. I think I forgot what was the question actually, eventually, Markham. Sorry, you'll have to repeat there.
Well, I'll maybe just re-ask the question, Nagwan.
Yeah.
Outside of Alberta, we've got, BC is a big producer of hydro. Ontario is a big producer of nuclear. Are those provinces, maybe even Quebec, are they looking at getting into changing their systems to facilitate more corporate PPAs in wind and solar?
So outside of Alberta, we know of Saskatchewan exploring a subscription program to allow buyers to do direct bilateral agreement to procure their renewable energy. Nova Scotia is looking into green tariffs. Ontario announced a voluntary program that is still under evaluation, the clean energy certificates. These are the jurisdictions that are actively evaluating these options right now for bilateral agreements for buyers. But Alberta still remains the most competitive market for PPAs.
Well, Nagwan, thank you very much for this. Always appreciate your insights.
Well, thank you for having me.